Hi, everybody. How's it going? This is Eden of Light Cycle Astrology, just popping in for a quick video this week. Today, I want to take a look at the new moon in Pisces that is coming through during the week, which is also happening in square to the planet Jupiter. Now, I know in astrology, we tend to be a little bit weary of squares. They have a negative connotation that is attached to their reputation, of course. And oftentimes it's true they can be very challenging. But one thing that is sometimes overlooked is that squares, when they happen to benefics, either Venus or Jupiter, can actually be quite positive sometimes. It just may indicate that there is a kind of challenge or action that is required of us to sort of get at that good thing. So we'll be taking a look at some of these other aspects that are happening for us this week and some themes that go along with this new moon in Pisces square Jupiter. Before we get into it, though, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. You can leave some comments in the comment section if you want to share anything that you notice about the astrology. That's always so great to hear your guys' personal anecdotes about how the astrology shows up for you. You can find me at lightcycleastrology.com if you want to get hold of me as well. Okay, so let's go ahead now and we'll pull up the real-time clock, and I want to just walk us through the week timing wise. I'm just sort of riffing off the cuff today because hopefully on Monday or Tuesday, or if not Monday, Tuesday, then later in the week, I hope to be going to Oahu to help Kate come back home with the baby out of the NICU unit, which is massive. We're getting a new infant in our home. And so this new moon that is in square to Jupiter is massively, easily seen working or thematically sort of appearing in my life. But let's just broaden that out so it makes sense for all of you guys as well. But right now, I have the real-time clock set to February the 23rd, which is the previous Sunday for the week. And I brought it back to this day because here you go. You see Mars in the sign of Cancer right at 17 degrees even. And you see that little S down there that's saying that Mars is stationing to turn from retrograde back into direct motion, which is a major tone shift for Mars, of course, because we haven't seen forward movement for a long time. Mars has been in this sign being drugged back for, feels like forever. And then, so this week we get this kind of feeling or sense that there is sort of forward movement or forward action or some kind of busyness that is beginning to enter in, especially since this happens while the planet Mercury in Pisces is actually doing two things at once. Mercury is beginning to enter a conjunction with Saturn and also striking Mars with a ray in the form of a trine aspect, which means that for me, it feels like that's an indicator that there is a kind of mixture of there is the need for trying to wrap your mind around how you're going to be taking making a plan or making a course of action. And there's kind of a weightiness or seriousness to it, right? But I think you could maybe interpret Mercury trine Mars while Mars is stationing to turn direct is that there is definitely kind of this busyness to it, or this kind of almost like the sensation, right? Mercury in Pisces almost gives you that impression or that bodily sensation of being mental or imaginative in a good way, kind of like stirring the passions or stoking the fires that sort of begin to move us forward if we're kind of trying to get out of slow motion or something like that. And when Mars stations to turn directions, you often do get that sensation that it's kind of like things are going slow. They're hard to go forward in a regular speed or a fast way, especially if you have strong Mars signatures in your natal birth chart. That can always feel like you're kind of like on pause or stuck if you're a Mars heavy person. Anyway, we get that sort of seriousness that begins the week. There's some kind of plan, or there's some kind of serious communication or networking or movement, back and forth movement that requires a kind of like not usually the kind of light and dreamy Mercury that we get when Mercury is in the sign of Pisces, but more of kind of like the dream is somehow weighty or serious. It's like you wake up from a dream and it's like, wow, that wasn't just any ordinary dream. It has that sensation, and that sort of imagery that you get with Mercury and Pisces somehow is really indicative of that forward movement from Mars, changing directions, and we begin to sort of move passionately in a new direction. The other thing that's happening, let me just throw out my title here too before I forget. There we go. The other thing that's happening is that this week we get Venus making a sextile to Jupiter, which I really like as well. Both benefics configured to each other. And you think about Venus in a fire sign being configured to Jupiter in an air sign, right? For me, that speaks to a kind of things coming together very harmoniously, but maybe being pretty passionate, or like there's like a lot of love and grace and generosity, kind of a really good thing for this week as a sort of background energy, even though sextiles tend to be a little bit a little bit more subtle. I really love that there just seems to be kind of this flame that is stoked by the fires of Venus being passionate, with Jupiter wanting to do big plans and big ideas. There's this kind of this passionate, mentally fiery flame that is coming through for us, which is really good. And it's going to help us out with with maybe some of the seriousness that Mercury is contending with in Pisces, going through that conjunction with Saturn as the week opens here. Okay, so hopefully that isn't belabored too much. But if we go now to Monday, we're going to get the conjunction between Mercury and Saturn here. As the day progresses, Mercury will pass over the face of Saturn. And so clearly there is a kind of seriousness to what we can plan out or imagine. And, Mercury is pretty banged up here in the sign of Pisces. Mercury's still under the beams of the sun, trying to recover from combustion. In the sign of depression, where Mercury struggles to sort of be articulate in a purely mechanical or rational way, is more intuitive, and all of that. And then going across Saturn might feel like things are just, there's a difficulty in trying to understand, figure out, communicate, just maybe movement in general. Like I could see me taking a flight on Monday over to Oahu and it just being a rather difficult thing. Like I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. People don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I even missed the flight and have to rebook or something like that. But you can sort of expect it, kind of like, maybe some debacles around everyday kinds of movement or something like that, that just seems a little bit heavy, maybe even a little bit depressing or something like that. Interesting, we have Mercury in the sign traditionally called as its depression or fallen place. And then it goes by a conjunction with a planet that is also connected with melancholy. So you have to wonder if we don't go through kind of a little bit of a bummer moment in the beginning of the week, but one which was just sort of tempered by maybe some of the passions or the feelings by Venus and Jupiter, and maybe some of that drive that Mars is trying to initiate as it is changing back into direct motion. You'll also notice here's the moon sweeping by Pluto as it enters the sign of Aquarius Monday and Tuesday of the week. So if I were a weather forecast man, I would say, expect a little bit of bumpy weather from some of these conditions, but nothing that isn't going to smooth out as the week goes on, I think. Now, let's go forward into Thursday, which is when we get the new moon coming through. Thor's Day. All right, so on Thursday, we have the new moon coming through at about 9, a little bit over half degrees of Pisces, and you'll see that this new moon is coming through. Well, the sun is beginning to enter a square to Jupiter here. Now, it's going to take the rest of the week for the sun to perfect this square to Jupiter. I think that actually happens on Sunday, but I really, really love that Well, first of all, let's think about this. What was really interesting is if I go back a month here, just watch this for a second. If I go back a month to the Aquarius new moon, this is pretty interesting. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Just you see it during the Aquarius new moon. We talked about this last month. The Aquarius new moon was happening in a trine to Jupiter, which is interesting. And then this month we get the Pisces new moon that is happening in square to Jupiter. So the last couple of lunation cycles have had this this Jupiter kind of signature baked into the lunation cycle. So we're going to talk about what that could mean here in a moment in more detail, but that is it's really fascinating that we get this sort of Jupiter signature over the course of a couple of lunation cycles. This time is going to be a stronger Jupiter feeling to it because this new moon is actually happening in a Jupiter sign and in aspect to Jupiter again. So, and then we have this big, huge stellium in Pisces by this point, right? We got the moon, the sun, Saturn, Mercury and Neptune, and the north node of the moon. So, wow, we got a big pileup of energy in the sign of Pisces. This is definitely a good time where if you want to look at your whole sign birth chart and see what whole sign house Pisces is occupying or is overlaid. Like just for instance, in this real-time clock chart, this is in the ninth house. Boy, if you had this big stellium piling up in the ninth house like this, that would be something to, think about and reflect on. What are the topics of the house? Because man, there's a lot of activity in that part of your chart. Okay. And then just to play this out as the week goes on here, we do get on Sunday, we get the perfection of the square for this. So the moon is passing over, and then on Sunday, there is the sun making that perfected angle to Jupiter. And then this is going to, of course, get us into next week, where there's still at the beginning of next week a little bit of the tapering off of this energy. Now, one thing I do want to really quickly share with you, just because this is going to be something we take a look at here in a moment thematically, is that let's just go forward a couple more days. We'll go towards the culmination of the lunation cycle right around the time of the full moon. You'll see that this is when the sun begins to get really close to Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So right around the culmination of this lunation cycle, we get the sun passing just before, actually, we get the sun passing over Saturn. So that's something that's going to sort of figure into maybe what is being born right now within the context of the new moon. All right, well, let's get that out of here and let's take a look at some of the I have three themes that may stand out with regards to the sun square Jupiter or the new moon square Jupiter here. So one very broad theme that you could talk about is that when you get a new lunation cycle, a new moon, and new moons typically represent a kind of very subtle beginning of some kind, right? At least for the course of 4 weeks or so, you get kind of something that may be seeded at the beginning and is sort of playing itself out. But new moons can often last many, many lunation cycles after, and you sort of almost imagine it like waves, right? You get this one wave that comes through and it's still rippling, and even as maybe another new wave comes through, and you get all these waves that are sort of piling up, and those are the sort of the astrology waves that are coming through. So with this particular new moon, you get this seeded Jupiter energy that's real powerful in it. But of course, the square can denote that, yeah, over the course of the next couple of weeks, there are going to be some really good things coming through. There's maybe some kind of success that is denoted by the square to Jupiter, where things are having positive outcomes, or there is just a general theme of something sort of reaching a successful completion, or even a successful beginning or opening like that. Like for instance, me going to Oahu to pick Kate up and and get Annabelle the preemie baby that we had that was born 5 weeks early, it's been kind of, obviously nobody wants to go through having their baby be stuck in the NICU for 2 or 3 weeks. You want the baby to just come home, and you want to love on the baby and take care of the baby. But it was something that we had to go through, but which is, as Mars is turning direct and this new lunation cycle is opening, it's really amazing that we might, get the opportunity to go and bring the baby home this week. So really it's definitely going to have that level of like planning, discipline, that heaviness of Mercury and Saturn, and definitely a lot of that forward momentum energy of like, wow, things are really shifting with bringing a new baby back, and having a new family member enter the family, especially Mars in the sign of Cancer, a sign that's related to family. So you can really see that forward movement. But is it going to be like just super easy to have a baby? I mean, we all know the answer to that. Man, bringing a new infant home from the hospital is just about one of the most challenging things that you can go through. But is it like, why do we do it? Well, that's the Jupiter thing, right? The Jupiter thing is telling us, wow, there's something really great about this. It's Jupiter, and the blessing of children is an ancient interpretation of the planet itself. It's within the archetype of Jupiter to sort of have that connection with, are you blessed to have children? Because those are blessings, right? So big blessings in a certain way that may be coming generally for you on some level or at some place in your life, but it's not that it doesn't come without those challenges, right? Just like, taking care of a new baby, it's going to take a lot of energy. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take some planning. It is not going to be easy. You're going to go through moments where it's going to be rather difficult, but it's like, it takes that work and determination and perseverance to sort of get at the thing that is ultimately a blessing. So that's kind of the in line with the signature of this first theme, is that blessings may be bestowed in certain areas right now, but they are going to come with a mixture of kind of challenge or work for sure. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is going to be expansion and contraction. Now, this ties in with the idea that we're having the new moon in square with Jupiter, and it sort of feels like things kind of have that, like the rains are coming and they're sort of, they're raining over your fields or your crops or something, and it's causing kind of the crops to go through kind of a growth spurt that is, again, like a blessing, right? Something's being watered, something may be expanding or growing, something is kind of taking on a bigger dimension, and that's good. But you'll remember that the culmination of the lunation cycle happens just as the sun is passing over the conjunction to Saturn, which feels like, okay, you've expanded, but then there needs to be a kind of equilibrium where there's maybe is a contraction. Now, one analogy that I was thinking about when I came up with this possible narrative or theme that goes along with not just right now, but maybe this lunation cycle with this kind of Jupiter Saturn like 1-2 punch, is that maybe like I don't know why I keep thinking of buying a car analogies over the last couple of weeks, but let's say you're buying the car and there you are on the lot, and you go to the car dealership with like the intention of like, okay, this is my budget. This is roughly the kind of car that I want to get. I'm looking at the practical things and the budgets and all of that stuff. And then you go there and you see that one car and you're like, ooh, I wasn't planning on doing this, but man, that is just the car for me right there. And there's like this kind of like, that feeling where you're like, I shouldn't do it. It's not practical. It's over the budget. If you end up selecting that car, there's all kinds of rationalizations that you go through, like, okay, if I trim this, then I can afford the payment, blah, 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 blah. If I, maybe if I fold the seat down, I can still get as much in as I wanted to, even though it's not the thing, all this stuff that you're sort of rationalizing out. But there's that idea that if you do expand something somewhere, in order for things to sort of balance out, there may be the need to sort of contract something otherwise. So you buy the car, it's a little bit more money than you want to pay every month. And to make those payments, maybe you trim something else in the budget somewhere else, and there's like a contraction. Right. So this notion that this month sort of carries with it kind of the potential for us to maybe there's something coming in or in the process of getting bigger, but it needs to be tempered somehow with maybe like, okay, but we need to curtail, restrict, limit, sort of dial back something else in a different area as time goes on, or as the lunation cycle unfolds, let's say. So that's one theme broadly that you could see maybe coming through for us in the couple of weeks ahead here, and which begins now at the time of the new lunation here. Okay, and number 3, knowledge and wisdom. Now, this is a pretty broad one too, but you got to think about both the sun and Jupiter in ancient astrology. When the sun and Jupiter come together, there's this general theme around what you know, the kind of wisdom that you already have or maybe in the process of gaining or learning. And especially for square aspects, you can have a kind of like the tension around maybe not knowing something that you wish you knew, or maybe even like experiencing a kind of fall from grace on some level. Like ignorance can come in and sort of smack you in the face and maybe even be embarrassing publicly or something like that. But there can be this theme around wisdom and knowledge, and either what you have in wisdom or knowledge, what you're lacking, where you're at on the road of learning. And sometimes there can be a kind of hubris or ego fall or something like that that comes in if you sort of demand that people understand that you know something, which is that square aspect. Like the sun impressing itself on Jupiter can say, well, I'm really talented or knowledgeable. I have the skills, I have the talent in this particular area, and you all would be good to listen to me because I know what I'm talking about. And even if that's true, sometimes the shadow side of Sun Jupiter aspects is that we can sort of fall on our own sword of hubris if we're sort of coming off as like a know-it-all or something like that. But generally speaking, the thing that is really great about Sun Jupiter is that it can bring our lives into a moment where we're not satisfied with just knowing what we know. And it can also be a moment where we are somehow recognized for the talents or the knowledge or wisdom that we have. But it's kind of like a time, especially for a new moon coming through at this same moment, where I feel as though there may be a kind of creative passion that speaks to you and says, I want to learn more about this. I want to gain more wisdom or knowledge in this particular area, right? And it can carry over into things like professional spheres, right? Where if you're like, if you take another step up on what you, like your accreditation or what you're going to professionally have the knowledge and wisdom in your professional sphere, then maybe it leads to a higher promotion or something like that, moving up the ladder, as it were. But that connection with maybe even the professional world, and always having to need a kind of accreditation, right? The more wisdom and knowledge you have professionally, usually that falls in line with the more money you make and so on and so forth, the more responsibility you have. But so you can see kind of that connection with professional life, where the knowledge and wisdom is, proportional to the paycheck at times, or the reputation at work, or standing with the boss, or achievement and success, just broadly speaking, within your career. All of those things can be tied in, but of course, all of those things can also be about the work needed that is indicated by the square between these two planets in this particular aspect. So is this a time where you launch into learning more about something, and this in time brings about a kind of blessing within the job sphere or the professional sphere or something like that. That's another thing. But I love this one just for the way it says to us, don't be satisfied with what you know. Broaden, broaden your mind. In Jupiter sign, it can be really almost artistic, where it can be like colors and imagination are coming in, intuition. There's like a deeper intuitive thing that sort of stokes the fires and shows you this beautiful imagery of what you could know, and that maybe there is such beauty in life the more that you learn about something that is coming in right now. I'll give you an example of this because it's a little bit abstract. But for me, for whatever reason, I began yesterday thinking about, or researching and thinking about the gut biome, and it's fascinating to me how doctors have always said that the every disease begins and is cured within the gut, and how there's apparently 4 pounds of bacteria or microbes that are like that much weight of bacteria that is inside of our bodies, and that health is so dependent on this gut biome, which of course you can promote good health through certain foods and things like that, and so on and so forth. But this theme of all of a sudden I wanted to know more. I wanted to expand my world. I wanted to have this knowledge. And of course, this knowledge is for the benefit of my health. So there's this beneficial thing that's surrounding it. But that is one of the most beautiful things about Sun-Jupiter aspects, is they can really wake us up and sort of shine a light on the kind of knowledge or wisdom that we want to have in our lives, or that we do have in our lives. And sometimes we share that or something like that. So that is theme or narrative number 3, is knowledge and wisdom, just broadly speaking. So I hope that was useful for you guys. And I know this is a quicker video than normal, and I'm kind of rambling a little bit. So I hope you guys have a great week. Leave some comments in the comment section if you have anything you want to share. And hopefully I will be back next week, God willing, with the new baby in the house and all of that. And appreciate you guys for watching, and take care. Bye for now.